I don't know how to say it, but yeah, we
Good day, everybody. Dear delegates, I'm here to convey greetings and apologies from the SBSTA chair, Mr. Mpanu, who had planned to be with you at this event today. Unfortunately, Tosi cannot be here as he has conflicting commitments which happen to be scheduled at the same time at this event. Dear colleagues and friends, it is my pleasure to welcome you today to this information event, a dialogue with national focal points to discuss how to expand review expert sources under the enhanced transparency framework. The technical expert review process under the new ETF system plays a crucial role as in previous years under the Convention and the Kyoto Protocol. Reliable information and data on climate action and support ensure accountability and build trust among parties and other stakeholders. As we have heard over the years from our stakeholders in the process, including review experts and lead reviewers, as well as the Secretariat, the goal of securing sufficient review expert sources requires constant effort. Today's event is important as a starting point for enhancing engagement with national focal points, as well as other key stakeholders, to discuss the key challenges and, most importantly, identifying possible solutions. Transparency has already been an important matter under SBSTA. In Glasgow last year, parties to the Paris Agreement ironed out the remaining details to bring the ETF live. With the adoption of the operational guidance by the SBSTA and by the CMA, parties are now urged to swiftly make the necessary preparation for ensuring timely transition to the ETF. It is time for implementation. Review experts are the engine of the transparency process under the Convention and Paris Agreement. Ensuring sufficient and sustainable review expert resources is a key element of ETF implementation package, in addition to the development of enhanced transparency framework training program and the reporting tool for the biennial transparency reports. The upcoming submissions of the first BTRs, which due date is end of 2024, with some possible being submitted as early as in 2023, is an important reminder for us all on urgency of addressing this issue to ensure a smooth functioning of the new transparency mechanism in line with decisions adopted by parties. It is also important to keep the expectation of parties that their submissions will be reviewed and that the MPGs will be fully implemented. The SBSTA chair and I felt the importance to promote initiatives that facilitate the exchange of ideas between parties to address the challenges ahead. You can count on our full support to facilitate these exchanges, including if parties will consider it appropriate by elevating the discussion with all parties under the formal process. I would like to convey my special thanks to the distinguished panel speakers speaking on behalf of the parties that have kindly accepted the invitation to support this event. Also, thank you, Ms. Helen Palm, for accepting the role of moderating the discussion. I hope that the views you will be sharing today will support parties to gain a better understanding of the issue and contribute in identifying possible solutions. I look forward to your active participation and substantive outcome from this event today. With this, I hand over to Mr. Donald Cooper, Director of the Transparency Division at the Secretariat.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. It is indeed quite a momentous day. We always talk about needing to request the national focal points to do this or the national focal points to do that, but we always seem to be talking about them as though they're in the other room. Well, for a change, you're all in the same room. And I've asked the security to lock the doors so that you cannot get out until you have been well and truly lobbied. We have given you comfortable chairs so that you don't even know you're being lobbied. It's going to be that gentle. We have laid on some of the world's best to try and win you over with their wit, their tenacity, their experience, and just their overall greatness. We have done it all for a reason. And it's an old sort of phrase that came out of the US with Uncle Sam, where we need you. The enhanced transparency framework is going to put a huge jump in the number of experts who need to be invited to the party, who need to be a part of that group that's implementing the review processes, who's traveling around the world, making history, getting to know new friends in new places in new ways, having the time of their lives, whilst ensuring that this new global concept of transparency is being spread everywhere. We're asking you to firstly ensure that you nominate yourself, and then go out and grab 5 or 6 of your friends and 2 or 3 of your enemies and encourage them all to become review experts of one type or the next. One of the great things about the ETF is that, boy, it covers just about everything under the sun. So if your expertise is in energy, waste, agriculture, building, policy, anything, you're needed. And we want to encourage more and more. There are several things which generally come out amongst the informed, but don't come out in general. When people look at most of the Annex 1 parties, you see really strong infrastructure, knowledge base, experience, which is driving their climate policy. And that climate policy translates naturally into national development plans. How those policies go is how those countries develop. Right? Yet, if you go back when we started this process 25, 30 years ago, none of that infrastructure existed. Much of it was built on the back of the requirements to do greenhouse gas inventory assessments, submissions, and to meet obligations. They built it on the back of that. Now, many developing countries are looking at the enhanced transparency framework not as a reporting vehicle. Yeah, of course you gotta report. But that's not the important bit for them. It's the knowledge bit that's important. To know what's happening in their countries, to know whether or not they're being successful, to know what actions they need to take, to know how much of the 100 billion is actually arriving in their countries and going where. To know, and to know. And the participation in the enhanced transparency framework is going to facilitate that same expansion and capacity building exercise that happened for the developed countries. So we need as many developing countries as possible to nominate their experts to become a part of that group who are going to carry out those reviews and build up the national capacity. So again, consider yourself fully lobbied, and we are counting on you to be a part. It is going to be one of the most amazing international experiences, on the positive side, that comes about in the next 5 years. And you can chat with any of your colleagues or people who have participated, and I can assure you they will give you positive, glowing comments about the camaraderie that's built, the excitement of the activities, and the positive outcomes. So thank you all for participating, and I am sure that the panel are going to give you considerable amount of ammunition to go back home and dramatically increase the number of experts we have available to us, because simply looking at the greenhouse gas inventories, whereas we were doing them for about 44 parties, now we have to do them for, let's conservatively say, 130 to 150 parties. Heaven forbid if all 198 parties actually come forward with a full submission. And that's just one aspect of the enhanced transparency framework. So experts are needed, leadership is needed, and your leadership is needed. Thank you very much. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Pedro.
Thank you, Don. So, my aim here today is to try to provide information on the challenge that we have ahead of us, and I hope that also the information that I will show also triggers some discussion in the panel. This document was prepared with the support of colleagues from the Secretariat. Their names are in the screen. Thank you very much for your support. This is the outline of my presentation. So I will talk about the current state of play of things and what is expected in the short and the long term, and also what type of challenges and constraints we have. And then we will pass the floor to the panel to hear experiences and also to hear ideas to expand the roster. So, what is the role of transparency experts, and why is their role important? Transparency reporting and analysis ensure the information available to parties is accurate, consistent, and relevant. Having such information enables parties assessing the results of the implementation of the Convention and Paris Agreement and to make the necessary adjustments to achieve their goals. Transparency arrangements also helps parties in making informed decisions, implement climate change policies, and also promotes capacity building and builds trust among parties. As you can see in this slides, we expect the submissions of biennial transparency reports to start by the end of 2024, or these reports are due in the end of 2024. So we expect to start receiving in 2024 some 122 submissions of BTRs. This is quite an increase compared with the current system. How we will organize the review teams that will conduct the reviews of these submissions by parties. There are two types of reviews that will be used, or three, but let's focus here on two for the purpose of this exercise. So these are centralized reviews, where experts meet on a certain location and they review more than one party, several parties. And there are also in-country reviews, where experts meet at the party subject to the review. And depending on the type of review, we might need on average, 5 experts for centralized reviews and 9 experts for in-country reviews. There are some uncertainties at this stage, but I think let's move ahead with these numbers. They will allow us to calculate the needs for the future. So this is our estimate of expected needs in the short and long term, and also comparing that with the current system that we have. The nomination, the procedure for nominating experts was designed for a period where we only had submissions of greenhouse gas inventories and national communications. And the system was designed to generate experts that could support these processes. And as you can see, at the time, we didn't have so many participations. It was about 100 participations. So the system was working well for the needs. In the period of 2014, 2022, there were new requirements coming in from the adoption of Cancun agreements. So now parties started to submit biennial reports and national communications, as well as biennial update reports biennial update reports by non-Annex 1 parties. So the increase, there was an increase for the experts that were required to conduct these transparency processes. In the current system that we have now, we already face challenges in securing enough experts for conducting these reviews. With the introduction of DTS, we expect this to increase even further. So comparing early years with what we will have to achieve, we are talking about an increase of more or less 400% in number of participation of experts on average per year. So it's a quite significant increase. And the system, we have to consider whether the system that was designed for about 150 experts can support a new system where we will need 800 experts per year, or 800 participations per year on average. There's also a short-term challenge, which is quite important. From the current system that we have now today, we have to increase the number of participations by 100% for the first BTR. And this is quite a short period of time, because the reviews of the BTRs will start early 2025. So there's a huge challenge ahead of us, and I think action by parties is required. Currently, we have 3,036 experts in the roster. You might ask, well, this is a quite significant number. Why don't you use these experts that are on the roster? Well, not all these experts are available. Only 50% of them took examinations. So half of the experts that are in the roster never took examinations which are required to participate in the reviews. From those, not all passed exams. So the universe of experts is shrinking. Those that pass exams and are eligible, the Secretariat submits or sends surveys on a year basis to see whether they are available or willing to participate on reviews. And half of them, they don't respond to the surveys. And from those, we still have some team composition requirements. For example, the Secretariat has to ensure that the teams are balanced in terms of gender, in terms of Annex 1, non-Annex 1 parties, in terms of geographical location. Also, we have to observe the language skills of the experts. So we have some information that about 70% of the 70% of the experts which are willing to participate and could participate are invited because of these requirements that we have for composing the teams. And once we send a formal invitation for the experts to participate, 35% they decline invitation because they could not secure support from parties or because they have other commitments. So from the universe of 3,000 experts, we only have a very small fraction of experts that really could take active role in participating in the reviews. Here's the panorama of expert participations by party. The first thing I would like you to see is that 86 parties were never represented by any experts in the review process. 86. They have experts which are nominated, but no expert from these 86 parties participated in the review. And then on the other side of the chart, we have those parties that are very well represented, with more than 16 participations on average per year in this period between 2018 and 2022. Earlier this year, we conducted some consultations with transparency experts and asked them to provide information on constraints and challenges in participating in the reviews. And we clustered this information in 6 main areas, which are in the figure here. There are also some examples of the constraints and challenges that these experts mentioned. So we believe that parties will have to take actions to address all these areas of constraints. And we hope today to hear from you some ideas on how we should move ahead and ideas to expand the roster. And with that, I would like to pass the floor to Helen to moderate the panel and to hear their experiences and their ideas, and also hear from the audience what ideas would you have to expand the roster. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for the presentation, Pedro. I think that has set the scene very nicely, and also thank you to the SBSTA Vice Chair and to Don for the opening remarks. Most welcome to hear hear that. I will briefly introduce the panel. You can see that they're named there on the screen. Starting from my far left, we have Kishan from Trinidad and Tobago, then Julia from Australia, then Zhen from China. We have Günther, participating virtually, so I hope he's there somewhere and listening in to the proceedings so far and is able to join. Then Ichul from South Africa, and to my right, Guiney from Chile. So we'll keep it informal, and I hope we have a very good conversation. I'm going to ask each of the panellists to make a few remarks, about 5 minutes or so, and then we'll open the floor for questions and discussion. And I've promised Kishan that I'll give him the first speaking slot because he does have another engagement. We know this is a very busy time, so we'll give Kishan the first slot to speak, and then there are a couple of questions on the screen that may help us in our discussion, and they're there for guidance, but we're very happy to take all and every view in terms of addressing the issue at hand, which is expanding the availability of review experts to make sure we have a really good and well-functioning enhanced transparency framework under the Paris Agreement. So with that, Kishan, the floor is yours.
Hello, yes. Thank you very much, Helen, and thank you to the organizers for the opportunity to share our experiences and thoughts on this very critical issue that will become the normal state of affairs once the BTRs start coming in. So maybe I could just reflect on our own experiences and try to not necessarily answer the questions directly, but certainly address some of the issues that have been raised before. And we have developed a functional MRV system in response to the requirements under the convention, to the extent that we are now going to legislate the MRV system into law, and that has actually forced the need for experts in greenhouse gas inventorying and review, because then it will, the MRV system is designed not only to track domestic emissions for reporting purposes and NDCs, but also to implement our national climate change policy in terms of attaining the low carbon development path that is defined in the policy. So that is functional and up and running. What it has done is that, as I said, created a group of experts at the regulatory authority to now review submissions of inventories and so on. This probably addresses some of the issues that have been raised, because prior to that, any development of expertise in reviewing to meet the criteria for the roster of experts would have been secondary to primary jobs, in terms of primary job functions, so that it would have been based on available time and interest to develop that level of expertise. With the advent of the MRV system now, we have not only developed expertise from the regulatory side, but it now requires persons or entities that emit greenhouse gases to also have that level of expertise, including from the private sector. We are now in the process of expanding that MRV system to encompass the MPGs of the ETF, so that we will build competency and capacity to do internal reviews of our own BTRs and reporting requirements as required under the ETF. That will also be expected to become a part of the legislative framework once the templates and the attendant requirements for the ETF are met domestically and capacity is built. So what that does essentially is create a cadre of experts at the national level. It's not an add-on to or an auxiliary function to their primary job function, but it now becomes integrated into their main job function. So it remains with the country, it remains with the institution, it becomes institutionalized. So that is one way we thought that sustained capacity can be met and attained. The capacity arrangements, or the capacity building arrangements to continue to sustain the development of this expertise has also been developed through a training program that is administered by the University of the West Indies, open campus. So it's open to all the territories that in the Caribbean that are serviced by the open campus. And again, once the ETF system becomes incorporated in the MRV system, that training program, that certification program will be enhanced to also build a cadre of expertise and experts in ETF review and development of reports and so on. So that has been our approach in so that basically integrates the expertise and institutionalizes it on a sustained basis, because it is now encompassed and integrated into the legal framework and now required by law to prepare reports under the BTR. So that we expect, once that comes into being, that the number of experts will automatically increase through the continuous training through the university, for example, and the attainment of a minimum level of certification. We hope that the UNFCCC can augment the training in that respect so that it meets the requirements for international expert review, which would be welcome, of course. How can we incentivize participation in the review process internationally? I think, of course, for those experts that see this as an added-on responsibility that may need time and effort and travel, of course, some kind of compensation may be necessary to incentivize them. But to actually, ask or request experts to develop that kind of expertise just for the fun of it, as it were, if it's not institutionalized, is really a difficult ask, because we've experienced that in the development of our national communications, in the in our BUR reports and so on. And we had to resort to consultants, and our approach is not to rely on consultants but to institutionalize experts nationally. So, so that has been our approach. Again, it has worked well with the MRV system. We expect that it will continue to work well once the ETF is incorporated into the MRV system and into the training program and certification program of the University of the West Indies, the open campus. And by doing that, creates a sustained training platform, not only for experts in Trinidad and Tobago, but certainly in the region. And that provides that opportunity for creating experts, again, in the region. Incentivizing may require some compensation, as I said, as an added incentive to participate in reviews, because I would imagine after someone does 2 or 3 reviews, it builds their own capacity by sharing experiences, but it may become a little bit onerous, especially if the pool of experts remain low. So how that compensation could be materialized, I guess it's left to some exploration and discussion. But if we could probably say that it may be one of the preferred options to incentivize experts to participate and to become trained, then I would probably support that notion. But the details, of course, can be worked out later. So I'll leave it at that, Helen. Happy to take a quick question. Thank you.
Thank you, Kishan. Given that Kishan does have to leave shortly, if there's any quick, immediate question for Kishan, we could take that now before giving the floor to Julia. So I'm just looking around. I don't see an immediate question, but if anything comes up later on, Kishan, that is directed at you, we'll certainly let you know. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, and apologies everyone, I have to just rush off for another meeting. Thank you.
Not a problem. Julia, would you like to take the floor, please?
Thank you, Helen. So I'm just going to focus my remarks, start off with the first question, and start by making some remarks about the review, Australia's experience with technical experts reviews. So actually, I think there are three actions that I was going to talk about in what actions could be considered by the parties to expand the review roster here in terms of the funding and support question. And so I think for us, there are three things that we do. So the first we do is support our own inventory experts to become qualified reviewers and participate in reviews. We also support external experts to become, so academics and other experts to become qualified reviewers and be added to the roster of experts. And the third thing that we have done, which we have not fully implemented yet, but is to include funding for funding to support the qualification of expert reviewers in capacity building programs for transparency. So just on the first one, in terms of how we support our own inventory experts, I guess just to note that for us, we highly value the technical expert review process. It's been a really key element of improving our inventory over time and building the expertise and professionalism of our inventory experts. And for these reasons, we've long supported the nomination and participation of our own experts in the expert review process. So when we have people join our inventory team, a key part of their employment is the opportunity to become qualified as a reviewer and participate in the review process. So we kind of build that into their work expectations. We provide the time for them to do the training, to take the training courses, and then we support them to go and participate in reviews. There's a number of things that what we find from that is the benefits back to the department, to the team, greatly. They come back to us manyfold, that greatly outweigh the investment that we make in our experts. We also find that offering that opportunity is quite a powerful recruitment pool, because experts who are coming and looking for opportunities find the opportunity to become an expert reviewer and participate in expert reviews, the opportunity to travel internationally, to build connections with others. That's quite an appealing part of the job for them. And then what we find with the reviewers who do participate is that their understanding of the particular of the particular field that they're working in really increases, and we find that our staff who participate in expert reviews are actually among the most productive members of the inventory compilation team. Okay, so just, I guess, the point I'm making to national focal points here is that, in our view, supporting our own experts, our own staff to participate in these reviews is a really strong benefit to our inventory process as a whole. The second thing that we do is facilitate participation in the review process by Australian experts that are not, directly employed by us to do inventory reviews. So they can apply to the focal point. We facilitate their training. I think we could be better at this, but for example, we could provide support for travel that we don't necessarily do just yet. And then the third thing that we've done, and this is just recently, is Australia recently committed new funds to a capacity building program for transparency in our region. And for the first time, we built into that funding to support expert reviewers from the region. And I think it's maybe an overlooked element of capacity building support a lot of times. Like a lot of times we build in funding to help with the data gathering and the software development and the capacity building of experts directly, but we don't necessarily think about funding to support those experts to become reviewers and to participate in the review process. And so for the first time, we have that in one of our capacity building programs. And what we're doing right now, and this session I think is very useful to that, is thinking about how we best use those funds, so where we best put them to support inventory experts from partner countries in our region to become qualified and to participate in reviews. I think I'll leave it there for now, Helen. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Julia. I think we're building some very good ideas here, so that's definitely adding to that. Now I'll pass the floor to Zhen. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a very professional and technical issue. For me, it's some kind of challenge. But I did have my colleague help me. I think first the challenge is real. We have a huge amount of demand for expertise, and this demand also expand in a very short time. But the solution, I think, is quite straightforward. We need finance support to be available. Generally, $100 billion finance that is should be there, and also when I heard that I'm going to come here for this sad event, and I read about this and think, why don't you tell us earlier, 10 years ago or 5 years ago, when we negotiate the transparency? At that time there was a very strong suggestion or position from the developing countries that this transparency actually is an issue of capacity building, and there are other parties, just want to push it and just ignore the kind of the need for capacity building. So when you just have a law and a arrangement, then you start to operate, and then you find the problem. And for us, the head of delegation, we should think about what can we learn from that process. How can we build some system that can operate when it is really in the process? Of course, we cannot make any change now, but we must go on with arrangements. We have to have the finance support available. That's the first and the most important thing. And as far as China, my country, I think we, as you have some figures that our the total number of expertise from China and generally their kind of competence has been quite okay, I think. And how we can manage that, I think we need a very good mutual reinforcement between the global process and the domestic action. So in China, we also use the conventions and the Paris agreements, transparency regulation to require our local government to do the same, use the same procedure and same quality of data. And we also use this convention data reporting system for our emission trading system. So that has created the domestic demand for this expertise. And then, so our national team of experts somehow can get more contract into service domestically, so they can have some kind of incentive to maintain this team. But also we face the challenge of the competition between private sector and government for these limited resources. But fortunately, we also attracted more new and younger, people come into this field, and then also we set a job title under the category of the human resources for the carbon management. So then you created a lot of domestic demand and supply of the personality. So this is what mainly our experience. And also it's important to have your specialized technically department within the government for climate change. We know the climate change issue is both a coordination issue between diplomacy, politics, and economy, and so on. But you have to have a very stable and professional and specialized team for the government. So for us, we have quite a stable team of civil servants and expertise. So they get paid by the government for their job, but also for they connected a wider group of expertise for others. They get some kind of contract from domestic service market for emission trading system or local government reporting system and so on. So that kind of experience may be relevant. And also this means that the transparency work under the convention also helps our domestic work. But we also have a lot of work to do to make our domestic legislation more clearly about this this governance. So I think I can stop here, but most importantly, actually to really improve the finance supply from under our system. This is really important. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I can already hear some common themes coming from our speakers here. So this is encouraging. I wonder if we could turn to Dirk now, if he's available. Does the Secretariat know whether Dirk is online and ready to join?
So I can see you. Hopefully you can see and hear me as well.
Yes.
That's nice.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Hello, very nice to see you.
From Dessau in Germany. It's really a pleasure, and thanks a lot that I can participate to this very important event remotely, and tell you a little bit about the perspective of the German Environment Agency to report to the reporting framework and the roster of experts. I think I can refer to what Julia already said, because in Germany our approach is quite similar. If I heard to what Pedro said, that there is a roster of experts with about 3,000 experts, it seems to me that it's not a matter of expanding the universe of experts or expanding the roster of experts, but more that increasing the number of experts available for the reviews. And here I agree and can echo what Julia said. Our approach in Germany is that, or our perspective is that participating in the reviews is not only a benefit for the review process, but also there's a huge co-benefit in participating in the reviews, and in particular in doing the training courses for their own capacity building of the review of the reporting experts. So we use these review training courses and the participation in the reviews also to improve the quality of our own inventory or reporting in general, national communication, biannual reports, inventories. And similar to Australia, we offer to all new reporting experts within our team in the agency, at least in participating in the training courses, to gain the experiences and the capacity in their source categories or in the reporting. And we see also that participating in the reviews is increasing the experiences of the people and bringing back solutions for certain issues within the reporting, and to see how other parties solve the issues, how other parties deal with reporting issues, and to discuss within the review within the review team, and to discuss with the party under review and to learn from that. I think this is really a huge co-benefit of this process, and perhaps one of the most important issues or task for the Secretariat and the rest of experts, but also for parties, is to motivate existing experts within the roster to take the courses, to take the exams, and to be available within the within the roster of experts. In terms of increasing the roster of experts, it might be good, and we partially starting doing this as well in Germany, to have experts from non-governmental institutions. In the past, our experts were mainly from governmental institutions, or let's say reporting-related institutions, research institutions, NGOs, etc. We now increasing our experts, or the availability of our experts as well to non-governmental institutions like business associations, whatever, who is experienced and who can provide a valuable contribution to reporting and to review. But also experts from intergovernmental institutions might be a source for additional reviewer. Because if they are related to the inventories or the reporting, and they for sure can provide a valuable contribution to the review. So what is on my list as well with the bullets? I think if we are talking about the costs of the review, in my opinion, perhaps doing more desk reviews is more cost effective and more cost saving than in-country reviews. So that might perhaps here we can have readjust the balance between the three forms of reviews to be more cost effective. Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer your questions if there are.
Thank you very much for those remarks. Don't go away. There may be questions at the end of the session. So we'll now turn to Ichul, please. The floor is yours.
Yes, thanks. Thanks so much, Helen. I also want to just thank the Secretariat for the invite and the other colleagues for setting the scene. Yeah, so my talk I'll divide into three topics. Firstly, I'll focus on country experiences. Then maybe I'll touch a bit on challenges, and then I'll give an idea on some practical interventions. Some we've tried, and some that are new but also not so new. So yeah, maybe, yeah, as I said, I'll start off with our country experience and what we're doing at a national level. So one of the things we're doing is to try and build capacity within government. I think it's better if one can sort of, and I think a lot of speakers have touched on it. I think it's good if one can sort of institutionalize this function, you know, and make it sort of integrate it into someone's job. So that's what we're doing at the national level. So we have a big inventory team, but yeah, of course, not all of them have gone through the exam. So yeah, that's number one. Secondly, we also part of the CBIT program, which is the Capacity Building Initiative for Transparency. And thirdly, what also works for us is, this is some of the work I'm doing, or some of the one of the initiatives I'm driving, because what assists us a lot is, in the section that I work, we both the focal point for UNFCCC as well as IPCC. So what we try to do is we try to optimize time, and also we try to use a bit of our national budget. So we usually host regional workshops or sub-national workshops, in collaboration with universities. We've had several of those. We've had some before COVID, but obviously COVID came to interrupt. They were mostly in person. So we would collaborate with the universities and they would offer us a venue. And then of course we would just, provide a bit of funding for catering and so forth. But this we do in collaboration with universities. And what we do is we try to involve a lot of early career scientists. I think one of the colleagues referred to it, that sometimes it's better if you try and involve a lot of early career experts or scientists. So that's some of the work we're doing, yeah. So now since virtual capacity, as virtual meetings have become so popular, we've tried to kickstart it again post-COVID, but more on a virtual level. But of course, a lot of our university or research institutions are also very isolated, and some don't have very good infrastructure. But yeah, of course, we can use virtual platforms to do that as well, which helps a lot. I think, yeah, I'll stop there on country experiences. So yeah, the first point was to try and institutionalize it, make it part of people's job. The second one, we part of the CBIT program, and the third one is try and optimize by using sort of other platforms to also get nominations onto the roster. So the last initiative I spoke about was more to get people to do self-nominations to get into the roster. Now I'll try and focus on challenges. So yeah, so the team I work in, we quite a small team, but yeah, we try to do this a lot. But of course, we have a lot of other focus areas as well. As I said, I lead the one on with collaboration with universities and some research institutions. Another issue is I think Dirk referred to it, it's not really that we have a lack of experts or nominees into the roster of experts now, but it's more to get experts through the process of accreditation. So I think that's another challenge that maybe we should focus on. And I think the reason also for that, because I've had quite a few of my colleagues that have participated in exams. Some have made it, some haven't. So it's also the issue of time. And this also applies to the review processes. Because in most instances, for a lot of people, it's usually sort of a tertiary or ad hoc function. It's not really properly integrated into their work. And also the whole process, even from writing exams, studying and also participating in the reviews, it also requires a lot of time and dedication. So I've had some colleagues that when they would participate in some of these reviews, they would actually take leave from work, just to focus on the reviews alone. But of course, these are more the ones that have been integrated into the system. That's where it's been institutionalized. So what they would do is they would take time off just to focus on the reviews and put some of the other functions on the side. Yeah, and maybe now I'll just touch on a few. So I reflected on some country experiences. I reflected on some challenges, and now I'll just talk about some practical interventions, some we implementing, and also some that are new but also not so new. And some of those I've already touched on. So one of the proposals I think would be to get more people, to try and increase the intake and get more people through the exams process. Of course, there also needs to be a lot of training, maybe mini training workshops. So this can be done by countries or by countries in collaboration with other countries or at a regional level or even together with the UNFCCC. Yeah, as I said, it's also to try and get more people in, is to try and target sort of early career experts or scientists. And yeah, the one I touched on very heavily was to try and integrate it into certain job functions. And that's what we're trying to do in the branch of government where I'm working, because as I said, we have a very big inventory team. And what I think works in our favor is that the head of the inventory team is actually is very experienced with the expert review process, and he also participates in a lot of the trainings and examinations and stuff. So yeah, I think that's where I'll leave it for now. If anyone has questions on some of the issues I've touched on, yeah, you can just ask. Thank you. Thanks so much, Helen.
Thanks very much, Ichul. And over to you, Jenny.
Thank you. And thank you to the Secretariat for the invitation. I think the bad part of being the last speaker is that all the ideas that I want to mention was mentioned already for my colleagues before me. But the best part is that I can use only 5 minutes to get across with my ideas. So related with the support and the funding that we need to expand the process of expert, I think we need to enhance the communication related with the expert review process, because all my colleagues mentioned this, but there is a lot of benefit to participate in this, but not only for the expert, but also for the government. You have experts that have new capacities, that have new ideas of how the countries are resolving some problems, and that could be integrated in national policies, not only for reporting, but also to design better policies. Also, regarding to funding, I think after the pandemic, all people knows how can work virtually. I know in the past we have many problems with the in-desk reviews, but now I think all we have experience working long-distance work teams. So now we can really address this. However, we need the support and we need the commitment of the institution and employers to support the experts to participate in this, to have the idea of the time needed, not only to do the courses, but also to get involved into the review. We have a long week working hard on a review, and that should be considered for the employers. So I think we can do this virtually, but we need the support of the institutions. Of course, I think it's important to include experts from other sectors, not only public sector. We need academia, private sector as well, to enhance or to increase the number of the experts in the roster. But also we need to try to encourage them to take the courses, because we have a lot of number of experts, but we don't have enough experts with the courses, So related to this, and I'm going to the second question, learning from experience is very important. And I want to mention this because in the past, at least in Chile, we have the complaint of some experts that passed the courses and they haven't any experience with reviews. So they feel disencouraged to take more courses because they never get nominated to do a review, a real review. So they say, okay, I don't want to take more courses because they never call me. So I think now the arena is different because we need those experts. We need that expert take the courses. So the idea is to encourage them and to call them, maybe not only for review. Maybe we can design some other kind of event, like this meeting of lead reviewers, to having involved constantly. I mean, the lead reviewers are always talking about reviews, but the other experts are not so involved in the process. So maybe if we have some or more events or webinars or something like that, they feel more engaged with all this process anyway. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jenny. I think we're collecting quite a few good ideas, and that last one, I hadn't even thought of that before, and that sounds to me like a good something to pursue, to give that sense of belonging to a system and contributing and sharing ideas with others in their own situation. Because as a lead reviewer, those lead reviewer meetings are one of the best meetings in the calendar because of the exchange with that group of peers that are involved in that process and facing the same kinds of challenges. So that is definitely something that I would think we could take forward. We have around 15 minutes because we do need to finish at 15 minutes to 3 because there are negotiations beginning at 3 o'clock all across the process. But I know some people in this room, myself included, need to be somewhere at 3. But the floor is open for questions or further suggestions as to how we might make sure that we have a vibrant and functioning roster of available reviewers when we need to call upon them for the enhanced transparency framework in the first round, in particular the first round of biennial transparency reports and then ongoing. And I have to say, in terms of attracting people to do a job, the first round of BTRs, it's my recollection is that all those reviews are to be in-country reviews. So that, to me, has to be a huge incentive for people to get themselves qualified and if they can even gain experience of a review prior to that first round of biennial transparency reports. But anyway, any questions or comments from the floor? Do we have a roving, we have a microphone at the back of the room, so if you would like to take the floor down here towards the second row from the front. Thank you. The floor's yours.
Thank you very much for this session, and I believe it's beneficial to all of us as national focal points. I'm here representing the focal point for Kenya, and I was sent to raise concerns and listen to the speakers. I believe those comments they've made are very relatable to all of us. According to Pedro's presentation, we've seen that we have a bunch of experts, which consists of those who've been trained and those who've not been trained. So one of our suggestions is, could we have like, what do we call it? like minimum qualification criteria at the national level, whereby, because we have experts in the various sectors, but now if you call for nomination of experts to the national focal points, we nominate those experts we know from those sectors. But now on your end, we're not receiving any feedback on when they're going to be trained. And maybe the minimum qualification criteria could help. Another one is, and then after the nomination is done to the so-called experts, maybe the feedback will be quickened up a little bit so that they can know if they're going to be trained or not. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much for those suggestions. Right down the back.
Hello, Melanie from Panama. I know it's important right now, like to promote the nomination of a new expert for the new ETF training, but I think it's important to also, if it's not how many experts has passed the courses and have not been called in the last trainings, and I think it's important to ensure that the participation of the largest number of experts in the reviews, and that participation is equitable in terms of gender. It will be important to have that analysis for this new training process, because as our colleague from Chile says, in the case of Panama, we have experts who have never been called. And have you considered calling experts for more reviews once all the parts with experts has been considered to ensure that they aren't as many trained but inexperienced experts? And I also would like to know if do you have any guidance and criteria for the selecting of the expert to the nominations? And is something systematically or randomly assessed, or do you perform a deeply analysis for the criteria of the selection? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. Maybe I can make a response to that, but there may likely be other views in the room. There are a number of areas of capacity building and so on that are needed to make the enhanced transparency framework function. And for somebody to go on the roster of experts to become an expert reviewer of, say, a greenhouse gas inventory, they need already to know quite a lot about the greenhouse gas inventory before they do the training to become a reviewer. In other words, the review training doesn't train that expert to do an inventory, it trains that expert to review an inventory. But there are other processes in our system and outside it that train people to become an expert that can compile an inventory or use the IPCC guidance to compile inventories for the different sectors in the country. So there's sort of like a two-step capacity building and training issue here that I think we're dealing with in parallel. So it's definitely something that needs to be built into how we approach the issue, and ensuring that experts nominated to the roster for review training have already attained a level of expertise in greenhouse gas inventories or in, I don't know, projections or in estimating the impacts of policies and measures, or one of the areas that will be reviewed under the ETF and tracking progress towards NDCs. Any further requests, comments from the floor? We have, yes, so the microphone is on its way. It's not a very good room from that point of view, but it's coming.
Thank you. My name is Eduardo Baixo, and I'm from Mozambique. I would like to know if there is a minimum academic degree to become a reviewer. Like you have to be a PhD to become a reviewer, or you don't have to have that degree. Thank you.
No, you don't have to have a PhD. It may be an impediment. Speaking as somebody who doesn't have one, it's probably a very unfair thing to say, but no, it's not so much about academic qualification. It's about having that sort of expertise. So if you're working in your own country and part of the team that compiles the biennial report, the greenhouse gas inventory, or the biennial update report, then that is kind of like the minimum qualification that would then enable one of those people to undertake the training to become a reviewer. So sort of practical experience in the reporting process, and then take the exam to become a reviewer in whatever area, I think is yeah, but not any particular academic area at all. We have reviewers that have academic backgrounds and things that are totally unrelated to anything that we're doing under this climate change process, but people learn as they go. Any further questions? Down the back here. Yes, you have the floor.
Hello, I'm from Czech Republic, and I would like to express this comment on support of what Jenny said, and thinking about the individuals in the roster of reviewers to become more felt as a community, and this support for creating this community feeling. Because when you get to the reviewer, then you are part of that community. But the problem is how you get in there. So all these virtual platforms, support, learning, workshops, capacity building would be excellent. So as a part of the European Union, we have this ESD review process, and it feels like a capacity building for us. So could there be something for these individuals who are in the roster, any learning hub, any funds or learning already to support that learning process to get through? That's, thank you.
Thank you very much for that comment. We have about 3 minutes to go, so I just would like to ask if any of the panelists want to make any further remarks before we close. Julia? No? Mitchell, please.
Maybe just one quick remark. I mean, there's also a level of responsibility for the focal points to also raise awareness in the country. That's why I said from our experience, although we have a very small team, we, as I said, fortunately I sit in the office where we are both the focal point for IPCC and UNFCCC. So when we have these collaborative sort of technical workshops to get the word out on IPCC, to recruit more experts and scientists, we try to blend it with the expert reviewer process, and I think it helps a lot. So I mean, I've spoken to people from other countries that don't even know who their focal points are. So I think it's important for people to also get in touch with their focal points and, you know, let them know that there's interest out there for people, that people are interested in becoming expert reviewers and getting onto the roster of experts. Thanks.
No, just to support the ideas of my colleagues, and you are right. I think the national focal point also has a lot of responsibility because we need to get across to the expert and make them understand the importance of participating in this process. So I think we have also a good task to do in our countries.
Thanks, Jenny. And Julia, please.
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to echo the points about national focal point responsibility and comment that that's one of the things that I'll take from this session as a national focal point. And I think a particular action will actually be to go back and review our list of Australian experts on the roster of experts and see which ones of them are, you know, actively reviewing and have the support to review and which ones don't. And so I think that's one concrete action to start with. But I love the idea about creating the community of reviewers as well, and also communicating much more clearly the benefits of the expert review, not just to the reviewers themselves, but to the national government. Thanks.
Well, thank you, everybody. I'm sure the Secretariat has been listening very hard in the room as well, and will be thinking about next steps here, because from the introductory presentation we can really see that there is not like a need today, but a very definite need tomorrow to have more experts available for the first round of biennial transparency reports under the Paris Agreement. So I have here on my agenda that Zhuhong was going to close, but it's going to be Vitor. Please, the floor is yours.
Sorry, Helen. It's not Zhuhong, it's me, it's Vitor Góes. So thank you, Helen, thank you the panelists, and also thank you the Vice Chair for being here today. And I also thank the audience for being here, for having listened to us, the focal points, and for the questions that were raised. And I mean, if I would try to summarize, I think we heard, I mean, from the Secretariat point of view, we heard valuable insights and suggestions here today. And we also like to stress again that the availability, I mean, the message was clear, that the availability of experts and the resources needed to organize reviews under the ETF, it was also the case of MRV, as mandated by parties, has been for many years the preoccupations of the parties, the experts, the lead reviewers, as the Helen mentioned, and of course the Secretariat when we try to organize the reviews. So that's an important point, but I believe that was a range of ideas expressed during these events that I think are very helpful, and in looking in options to advance this matter. And it's comforting or pleasing to notice that the parties have been looking for solutions for the availability of experts. I mean, what I think I heard, I mean, this is not a comprehensive, and I don't want to put the words of others on me, but I think we heard talking about institutional arrangements and functions, legislation, technical capacity building and training, support and funding, also to experts, capacity building, and participation of experts not from the governments. Private sector, academia, IPCC, we heard that. And I think there's an important thing we heard about the co-benefits of the inventory, of being part of the inventory teams and learning by doing. So as demonstrated here today, I mean, we recognize that the parties have a key role or an important role to play, ensuring that the ETF can operate in a sustainable manner in terms of the experts. And we in the Secretariat are looking forward to receive further guidance. Also, the receiving further guidance. You mentioned some aspects here, like finance or support, and that was also discussed elsewhere. So we're looking for that. But apart from that, we are available to work with the parties and also keep experts like lead reviewers and helping to find solutions to address the matters and to follow the guidance. And we hope, we are available, and we hope that we be able to organize further events of this type, and so that we can continue discussing and spreading the view. So I think maybe I'm probably going over, so my colleagues tell me that. So I would just like to thank you all for your presence, in particular the speakers, and including Helen and Kaha. So, and we are grateful for your availability to be here today. So there is a QR code. I don't know if it will be made available. Yes, right. And so if you want to provide your comments, it's on my left. If you want to provide the comments, use it. So thank you very much, colleagues. And if there are no further comments, the event is closed. Thank you.